The main editing software that I used for a majority of my coursework was Final Cut. This program allows me to be as expressive and flexible with my editing as I want, as it is fairly easy to use. It enables me to achieve visual effects that I wanted to create, any cropping of shot lengths, change the speed of my shots, adjust levels of my audio I have, adjust brightness and contrast, and generally anything that I wanted to do for my amateur product. The ability to adjust my visuals is definitely the most useful feature, as a lot of my film was in the dark. As I needed my lighting to look as natural as possible, rather than obviously lit and artificial, Final Cut came in handy as it allowed me to adjust the lighting of any clip I wanted to. Some of the shots really were too dark, the shots in the cellar being a prime example. As it was in the cellar, I couldn't really use any other lighting without making it look unrealistic, so with the use of the adjustable brightness and contrast feature, I was able to make any of my overly dark shots look brighter to have a clearer vision of my shots without it looking artificial, which is what I really was trying to avoid to add to the realism. When the babysitter's friend arrives, they engage in a conversation as soon as they sit down. I use Final Cut to adjust the speed of the shots to a faster speed as a representative of time passing and to make it a little more interesting to watch. Likewise, just before they hear the noises, I use the slow motion effect speed to add a bit more of a dramatic impact in contrast to the sudden bang and when they suddenly snap out of their conversation and turn around quickly. When I filmed my product, I made sure I recorded a few seconds longer than intended for each one of my shots to make sure I was never left in the position where I didn't have enough content. Because of this, I needed to edit the duration of a majority of my shots for my short film. Final Cut allowed me to do this easily with the simple timeline at the bottom half of my screen, meaning I could be as flexible as I wanted with my shots. As the complexity of my sound was not that bad, I was able to achieve exactly what I wanted through just using Final Cut. I could adjust the volume of my shots if they were too quiet or loud, and most importantly I was able to overlap sounds over the top of one another, which really helped me in making my music more effective and dramatic. When creating my review, I used InDesign. Although it took me a while to get used to, the program was very useful for what I wanted to accomplish. The freedom of how I was able to create the layout of my review was perfect, as this allowed me to change the size of columns, boxes and spacings for things such as quotes and ratings. The software was able to supply me with the fonts that matched those of Empire, which is what I was aiming for, meaning I did not need to download any, which was beneficial and saved me time. Lastly, I used Photoshop for the creation of my poster. I have already had lots of experience with Photoshop with previous photographic work in other subjects, so the creation of my poster was fairly simple. Photoshop was very good when it came to adjusting the actual main image. It enabled me to change the brightness and contrast as much as I wanted, which is what I did, so that the light beam had more of a dramatic impact across my character's face. While applying my text, I created each piece of text as a new layer, so at any point I was able to move a section around without interfering with any other areas of the poster, which was both useful and gave me the freedom I needed to get the spacing right. One thing that was important was the spacing, positioning and layout of my text on my poster. In order to make it look effective, I needed to make sure that everything was in proportion with one another and did not look overcrowded. So Photoshop came in handy as it had a grid you could place over your photo as a guideline to position everything. The grid is essentially coordinates, meaning I was able to make sure any text was exactly equal to one another. For example, I wanted to make sure that the cast names at the top of my poster were in line with one another and mirrored so that the poster looked proportional, so this tool came in handy. This is a skill that I've developed since AS, as I was unaware it was an option, meaning I used Photoshop in a considerably more professional and advanced way, as everything was perfectly in proportion with one another this time. Not only did I develop skills on Photoshop, but my abilities have advanced considerably on Final Cut. I had one basic soundtrack at AS, whereas this time I explored the use of layering and overlapping, audio volume adjustments and speed. I developed on from last year with my visual effects abilities too. Although I changed the speed of the shots last time, I used this technique in a more advanced way as it was more relevant to my film, as I use specific decimals. I also took advantage of the contrast and brightness adjustment feature that I was not aware of last time. This really helped improve the quality of my film, so this advance was beneficial. I had never used InDesign in my life, so it was a new experience for me. However, I very quickly adjusted to how it worked and it paid off. I learnt skills about sizing and fonts mainly, and helpful methods of layering. I used a lot of images as I had a main image, the 4 stars underneath my quote, and the blue arrow. This taught me about how to layer it onto my image, and in the case of the arrow, fade the image behind the text.